Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Boy, it is great to be here, and Bill Daley, thank you very much for that generous introduction. Many of you know that Bill and I are especially close friends, and it is a great honor for me personally to be here on the occasion of him taking the gavel for this great economic club of Chicago. And to the outgoing chair, Miles White, I want to say congratulations to you on your leadership, and to all of the board and the distinguished guests. Thank you very much. I want to begin, ladies and gentlemen. Well, first of all, I am Al Gore. I used to be the next president of the United States of America. I don't think that's particularly funny. Put yourselves in my position for a minute. I flew on Air Force 2 for 8 years, and now I've got to take off my shoes to get on an airplane. I always tell us when they do the body search, I always say, well, I was mad after the election, but I wasn't going to do anything like that. Just one quick story before I share what I came here to say with you, just to illustrate the emotional whiplash of that experience. Not long after I left my job in the White House, I was driving with my wife Tipper, and Tipper sends her love, Maggie and everyone. I was driving with my wife Tipper from our home in Nashville to our farm in Carthage, Tennessee, about 50 miles away. We were driving ourselves. I realize that sounds like a little thing to most of you. But I looked in the rearview mirror, and all of a sudden it just hit me. There was no motorcade back there. You've heard of phantom limb pain? This was a rented Ford Taurus. And it was dinner time, so we looked for a place to eat, and we got off the interstate highway, and we found a Shoney's restaurant, low-cost family restaurant chain. And we walked in, sat down at the booth, and the waitress came over, made a big commotion over Tipper. Then she took our order and went to the couple in the booth sitting next to us, and she lowered her voice so much I had to really strain to hear what she was saying. And she said, "Yes, that's former Vice President Al Gore and his wife Tipper." And the man said, "He's come down a long way, hasn't he?" But in all seriousness, what has happened in this city, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this climate crisis and what a great opportunity it is for American business, and it really is. But I want to just draw your attention to the fact that under Rich Daley and the folks that have been helping him so well, and I want to compliment Adele Simmons, who is co-chairing the Climate Change Task Force in Chicago, and I met several of the young people who are working so hard on that. Chicago has, under Rich's leadership, conducted energy efficiency retrofits in over 15 million square feet of government facilities, become a founding member of the Chicago Climate Exchange, and my friend Richard Sandor is here. Founded the Chicago Smart Bulb Program, which has distributed 500,000 CFL bulbs to residents. Started the Chicago Industrial Rebuild Program to do energy audits for the largest energy-using industries, and they have made Chicago one of the great leaders among all of the cities in the world. And I just want to say congratulations, Mayor Daley, for what Chicago is doing to help fight the climate crisis. Now, you know I've got a slideshow to try to put things in real clear and understandable terms. I want to give you a clear and understandable example of what these kinds of initiatives mean. If the daytime temperature here in Chicago is 70 degrees, you go outside and climb up to the roof of some buildings, including some government buildings here in Chicago that don't happen to be owned by the city, and you will find on a 70-degree day that a tar roof is 151 degrees. But on the roof of City Hall, it's 74 degrees, because anyone who thought that this emphasis on roof gardens was just kind of eccentric. Now, why the hell you think Rich Daley would do something eccentric, I have no idea. But if you think that this was one of them, this is really serious stuff. And cities around the world are now following Chicago's lead. And I asked some of the business leaders how Rich persuaded all these people to put these roof gardens on. And they said, well, he just said, please. Okay. Now, we've always had hot days. And 10 or 12 years ago, y'all had that bad heat wave in Chicago that killed 1,000 people. I believe it was 1,000. It was a lot of people died. And in Europe, they lost 35,000 people a few years ago. But the scientists say much, much worse would come if we don't act. Because we can't continue treating this atmosphere as an open sewer. And we don't think of it that way yet because CO2 is invisible and tasteless and odorless. And so the old saying, out of sight, out of mind, applies to it. And it's easy to ignore. But just as the old controversies of overpollution in years past have finally reached the stage where people said, enough already, we got to control this. Now we've reached that stage with CO2, except it's global, and China's got to be a part of the solution, and India's got to be a part of the solution. But you know the very best thing that can be done, the most important thing that can be done to improve the chances that China will join the world community in solving this, for the United States of America to start playing a leadership role in this, to do the right thing for a change, start controlling this. So now it's our turn. And here in this great city, where common sense has just had a place of honor, and I don't say that to flatter you. I say it because y'all gave me 73% of the vote. And Rich and Bill are still looking for the rest of you, by the way. But in all seriousness, Chicago is the kind of city unique. There is no other city like Chicago. But Chicago is the kind of place that I think it's appropriate to have the carbon exchange, the climate exchange. This is the kind of place where this common sense, go get them, solve the problem, do it right, brand of leadership is so greatly needed for the rest of the world. And the business community in the rest of the world and in the rest of our country looks to Chicago. And they look to this club. And they understand what this leadership group is here and in the other room. I'm coming over there right after this. Thank you for being here as well. We really need your help. Now, before I close, I just want to make a couple of other points. There's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Well, we need to go far, quickly. And that's the truth. And this challenge is right at the outer edge of what it's possible for us to do. And that's the truth. But it's right at that outer edge of possibility that throughout history, every historic decision that marks the survival or the fall of civilizations is made. That's where the decisions are made. And this is our challenge. This generation alive today, because of historical accident, because this burgeoning revolution of industry and carbon fuels, you know, a century ago when the Great World's Fair was here, we were in the dawn of the industrial age. And in 100 years, we have quadrupled the population on this planet in 100 years. And that's not the place to look to fix this crisis. It's a big part of the explanation for why we're suddenly a bull in the china shop. But that's stabilizing worldwide as girls are educated and women are empowered and family planning is made available in culturally acceptable ways, and children survive at higher rates to give parents the confidence to have smaller families if that's what they want to have, which is what they usually want to have all around the world. And so that's stabilizing. It'll even out probably around 9 billion or so while my generation is still alive. But in 100 years, that's a big change. And an even bigger change since the Great World's Fair here is that our technologies have become more powerful by a factor of many thousands of times. And so the same kinds of habits and activities that once made no difference to the environment, now all of a sudden we can have a huge impact. And they've made our lives better in so many ways, but the unintended side effects are sometimes just not fully taken into account, and now is the time when we have to do that. But in order to grapple with this successfully and overcome it, we have got to change our way of thinking about our responsibility to the future.